This is gonna be a very real and raw video. My name is Aspen. I just turned 20 and I went from being homeless, dropped out of college after 2 weeks. I was broke, I had no direction in my life, and I even had warrants out for my arrest. And now I make over $50,000 per month with high ticket closing. I make money online now. And it wasn't always like that, all that flashy stuff, that lifestyle, the traveling, all those things. It didn't just come out of nowhere. My life didn't change overnight. It was a process. There were ups and downs, and I want to tell you guys about the good times, the bad times, and yeah, I mean, I grew up in a small town in Helena, Alabama. Small population, nothing crazy. I didn't grow up in a big city with a ton of wealthy people. It was just a small town where everyone does the same things as their parents, and their parents did the same thing as their grandparents, and so on and so forth. I'm not one of those people that can say that they grew up in poverty. I had a roof over my head growing up. I had food in the fridge. I had wonderful, loving parents that did their best to raise me, and they did a great job. But I also wasn't one of those kids that was a trust fund baby. I also wasn't one of these kids that was high middle class, even upper class, having all these great things. My parents didn't give me a car. I had to buy that. I had to pay for my car insurance, all these things growing up. And I would like to think that that's a good thing, that I grew up in lower middle class and I wasn't growing up in poverty. But I think it can be a gift and a curse, depending on how you look at it. Because for me personally, I grew up comfortable. And growing up comfortable, like I said, it's a gift and a curse. Because if your family has provided everything to you, you don't have to worry about bills, you don't have to worry about anything financially. You grow up just focusing on multiple other things, other than finances, other than money. I was really big into sports. You know, when I was little, I did soccer. It was really fun because I'm a very competitive person. And just from a young age, I knew that I would be different. And the reason being is because I started soccer and I was talented, I was gifted, I was pretty good at it. And it was natural ability. I was naturally gifted. I had speed, I was fast, I was good technically with the ball, I was intelligent on the field, and that helped me. But when I got to middle school, I was still playing soccer, and everything had been easy in my life up until that point because, like I said, I was comfortable and I was naturally gifted at a lot of things, so things kind of came easy to me. And I was always the best one on the soccer field. But when I got in middle school, there was this foreign exchange student, and I still remember him. I'll never forget his name. His name was James. And he came to the soccer team. This was in 7th grade. When I tell you, he was so much better than me. He was so good at soccer. He knew how to juggle the ball. He knew how to do all these tricks. He just blew me out of the water. Because up until that point, I was the best player on every single team I've played on. And no one even came close. And when this kid came and he was so much better than me, I was like, wait, I didn't think people could get better at soccer than I am. I realized that talent could only get me so far. This was the biggest realization that I had at a young age, and this is probably the point in my life where I really got into self-improvement, because I just thought that rich people that had things come to them in life were just naturally gifted and they didn't put in any hard work. But then this kid was better than me, and I did not want my ego to get shattered more than it already had been, since this kid came into the school. He barely spoke English and he was a lot better than me at my sport. And so I started training on my own time outside of soccer practice. I would go to the field, practice, get better, and I was just a very driven kid. I would basically take my bike from my house, I would ride it 2 miles away to the soccer field, and I would just practice until the sun went down. And that was during the school year. Once the summer came, I got even more dialed in. I started driving my bike to the same soccer field 2 miles away and just training from sun up to sundown. Got really good at soccer. Come my 8th grade year, I was pretty good. I started to get the same level as this kid named James. And at that point, I was growing and getting better at my sport, and my parents wanted me to get better at my sport even more, and so they put me on the cross country team. I hated running. I literally hated running. I despised it. Then I'm on this team where I hate running, but I have to run a couple miles a day. It wasn't anything crazy, but I had to run a couple miles a day to get in better shape. And like I said earlier, I was naturally gifted. So at practice, I blew everyone out of the water. Never had run before. And when it came to the races, very competitive. And then I would start winning every single race. And I got to the point where I had become the fastest 8th grader in the United States for the mile. I think my time was like 4:40. It wasn't anything insane, but just based off of my natural ability. For an 8th grader at the time, it was pretty good. This was great. It boosted my ego more than my ego should have been boosted. And what happened was, man, it gave me such an ego. And then COVID hit. And I was actually upset because, yes, we were out of school for a while, but I couldn't go to the national championships. I couldn't get my gold medal for being the fastest 8th grader in the United States at the time. And so I was upset, but then I also was looking forward to going into high school with the title on my back of the fastest 8th grader in the United States for the mile. But what happened was I got stuck in a loop of complacency. And this is one of the biggest things that changed my life, is because I realized that there is loops in life, and one of the biggest loops that keeps people stuck is the loop of complacency. Every step of my life before this point, I had been the guy that had everything come to him naturally without putting any effort into the world. And what happened was, after becoming the fastest 8th grader in the United States for the mile, I was on top of the world. I was in the success stage. But after success comes complacency, because you have nowhere else to go. When you're at the top, you can't go any farther up. You're number one. The only way to go is down or stay where you're at. And so COVID happens, the whole COVID goes by, and I'm expecting to go into my 9th grade year, entering high school, being the fastest freshman in the United States, right? I thought my title from 8th grade would carry over to 9th grade without putting in any work, because shoot, I was already at the top. Who's gonna take me down, right? That was my mindset, at least. And I got into my new track season, and everyone else had blown me out of the water. Not only the older kids, but even the kids my age that were slower than me in 8th grade and middle school, they were faster than me now. But the reason why is because they had multiple months to work and take my title down. And so if you get complacent, that's when you go and lose your title. You go down that leaderboard. And so the loop of complacency goes like this. There's 4 steps. The first stage is failure. The second one is learning, because once you start failing, you start learning and growing and understanding what is keeping you at that failure stage. Once you start learning, you start to have success, because you learn from your mistakes, you improve what you did bad on, and then after you start having success, you get complacent, because you become the guy that I was. The guy that is at the top, he has success, there's nowhere else to go now. Might as well just get comfortable, right? And so that's what happened to me. I learned the loop of complacency, and then I realized that once you get to the success stage, you have to not go to complacency, but you have to keep looping and going from success to learning, success to learning. The moment you stop learning is the moment you stop growing, and you get complacent, and then you go back to failure. And so this is something that really helped me in my entrepreneurial journey when I did get into this space of high ticket closing, because I would not be where I am today if I didn't learn that loop. And so I had gotten really good at track. Fast forward a few years, I had become a runner for Team USA track team. I went over to Australia to run. I won a couple of championships, got a couple gold medals overseas. That was really fun. Got that Team USA jersey. And then going into 2024, in August, I had gotten multiple D1 offers. And then after running for Team USA and winning some championships, I went over into my college track career. This is August of 2024. And I had multiple offers from all the schools, right? D1, D2, D3 schools that were all offering me scholarships to run. And what happened was, I knew that running was fun. I mean, running was cool, but I didn't really like running. I liked winning. And when you go into something like that, you're never gonna be as successful as a person that loves the journey. Because, I mean, I liked the results, but I knew that 4 years in track in college wasn't really gonna fulfill me. The journey is what was gonna fulfill me, and I did not enjoy running 10 miles a day every single day and then hitting a lift the same day. I knew I didn't want to go have a college track career just to go pro and not even enjoy what I do. Because if I'm gonna do something and really achieve highly in it, I'm gonna go all out. It's gonna take up all my time, energy, money, effort, attention. And I just didn't wanna give all my attention to something I didn't truly love, especially love the journey of. I mean, the goal was financial freedom from the start. I just had grown up in a comfortable home where I didn't have to think about finances. And I went into school 2 weeks in, realized I didn't wanna do track. I realized I didn't wanna get a degree because that was not gonna give me financial freedom. And before I even got to college, I knew that I didn't wanna go into it or do track. I had started to try and work towards financial freedom because I saw kids my age making money online and driving the Lamborghinis, living in the penthouses, traveling the world. That was the lifestyle that I wanted to live, because I hated school so much, you don't even understand. I could not go sit in the classroom, work in a 9 to 5, and just live a horrible life. That's just not the life that I was meant for, and I knew that. And I hated that so much, and I knew that I could get more. And it's funny because all of the successful people that I know have the same exact mindset. And there's really three things that every single successful person has that separate them from everyone else. And I can attest to this. I have all of these traits. And the first one was a superiority complex. Superiority complex is basically where you think you're better than everyone else. Not in a cocky way. You still love people and you still appreciate them, but you know you can achieve higher heights. You know you're not meant for average. You think you're superior to everyone. And for me, I had a crazy superiority complex where I knew I was meant for more. I knew I could be the best, and I just didn't want to settle for a life where a boss could tell me when I could take bathroom breaks and when I could go home and, see my wife and my kids later down the line in the future. That was not the life that I wanted to live, and I knew I didn't have to live that life. So the superiority complex, something that really started everything, and it started everything for a lot of other successful people that I know as well. Because, like I said, they just think that they are meant for more. Secondly, the second thing that separates me and every other successful person that I know is they have almost a crippling insecurity of never being enough. And that being paired with a superiority complex is a deadly combo, because you think you're better than everyone else, but you also have the fear of never living up to your full potential. And that's a big potential right there. And so the third thing is what ties it all together, and it's just hard work. So superiority complex, a crippling insecurity of never being enough, and lastly, a crazy work ethic. If you have all three of those things, it's inevitable that you will be successful. Doesn't matter how, doesn't matter when, but you will be. And so all of those three things paired, for me personally, made me realize that I could achieve the lifestyle that all these other kids had on the internet. And until I truly believed that I could be that guy that lived that lifestyle the same as everyone else, that was the exact moment when I truly started taking action towards my goals. And so from the ages of 16 to 18, I had tried all these different online business models, even in-person business models. My first business was a landscaping company. And then my second business was a pressure washing company. I literally got all the money I could together, went to Home Depot, bought a lawnmower, push mower, and I'll never forget all the days that I would go drive around, knock on doors, ask people to cut their lawns for $20 just so that I could start making some money, so I could have some freedom. Because it was a privilege to be able to get $20 and go spend it at a gas station, because we were lower middle class growing up. I didn't have the ability to go splurge on little things here and there. And just having the freedom of being able to spend $20 at a gas station is what really motivated me, and I started to get a taste of freedom. It wasn't anything crazy, it was just $20, but I started to slowly improve and slowly grow. And so landscaping and pressure washing was great, and I made some money, but I didn't want to work in the hot sun all day for 12 hours. That just was not ideal. It's not maintainable. It wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable. I'm not passionate about cutting people's lawns. I'm not passionate about stepping in dog poop when cutting grass. That's just not what I wanted to do. So I started looking into online business models. First thing I tried day trading, but I needed money to start, and it was kind of hard. Then I started SMMA, social media marketing agency. That kind of flopped. I got some skills that helped me learn how to build some websites. It wasn't anything crazy, but I learned how business worked in general. But the thing that held me back from having success for these 2 years that I was doing these things, right? Because it was from the ages of 16 to 18 that I was trying all these business models, trying to get financial freedom. I never actually had real success with these. And the reason why is because I didn't have guidance. I didn't have any guidance. I tried to do everything on my own. I tried to recreate the wheel. I tried to be the guy that can make 10K a month just by figuring it out on his own. The reason why that messed me up so much is because if I would have just got connected with people who were already where I wanted to be, they could just tell me exactly what it is I needed to do, and I could have success. And for me, at the point in my life where I was at, where I was getting into college, still trying to figure out these online business models, I knew I needed to make a change, because I don't want to do this school stuff. And I also want to start making money online now and actually have results. So what I did was I knew I would be successful. I was so delusional. And that's what it takes. You have to have a vision of what your future looks like before it even comes into reality, because no one else is going to believe in you unless you do. And once you start getting results, other people will believe you. But I was delusional, and I was, looking on the internet. I found this one business model called high ticket sales, where you could be the middleman, you could close deals and make a lot of money from anywhere in the world. And I was like, yep, that's the one. Because all these other business models, they work. I know millionaires in every single money-making online business model, but I needed to stick with one. I didn't need to hop from thing to thing to thing. If I got a mentor and I got real guidance from people who had results, I needed to stick with one thing and thug it out. And so I took all of those philosophies and I just applied it into my life. I put my back against the wall. I knew I'd be successful and I knew I needed to make this work because I could not go down that path of the normal 9 to 5, of the normal college student that gets in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt just to do a job that they don't even like and not enjoy their life. So I was like, it's now or never. So I dropped out of college. I started High Ticket Closing. I had bought a mentorship from this guy that had success in the field, and it was like my last money. It was like $3,000 that I had saved up from landscaping and pressure washing. Had a little bit of money left over for gas and stuff like that, but I dropped out of school. I handed over my dorm keys to the RN, and yeah, I was gone. I was off campus. This was a crazy time in my life because I was like, yes, I'm gonna get financial freedom. Tomorrow I'm gonna be a millionaire. And it was a great, exciting point in my life, but I was not ready for the hard road ahead. I had put myself in a situation where I have to make this work no matter what. No matter the circumstances, no matter how hard it gets, I'm committed to making this happen. And that's what it takes to be successful. No matter what, you have to burn the bridges. You have to make sure that, I don't care what happens, I'm gonna make it work. And at this point, I had dropped out of school. I was couch hopping, sleeping in my car, and I didn't really have a place to stay, but I knew I could make this work. A few months go by, and I hadn't had any real success. I made like $500 in 3 months. This is my first 3 months in high ticket sales. And it wasn't ideal, but the reason why my success was so delayed was because I couldn't truly focus on sales. I had to worry about where my next meal was gonna come from. I had to worry about where I was gonna get the gas money to be able to drive from the Starbucks that I was doing sales calls at to be able to drive over to my friend's house to sleep on his couch. And I was focused on making money to survive rather than really focus on making sure I can learn sales the right way. And it was just like a really bad situation to be in at the time because my parents were also upset with me. I had been cut off from a lot of people that I knew. Everyone was telling me that I need to go back to school. I'm being dumb. I'm wasting my life. And one day my mom gave me a phone call. And she was like, hey buddy, I saw that your school just refunded your track scholarship money. What's up with that? They just sent me money to my bank account. And I knew I had been caught. At this point, there was literally no turning back. Like I had nowhere to go. I had to make this work. And I also couldn't be sleeping in my car, couch hopping, because that only goes for so long until people's parents start saying, hey, find your own place to stay. And so I was at the point where I was at rock bottom. I had negative $200 in my bank account. It was really bad. It was a really hard time in my life. I was still hopeful though, because I knew I'd be successful no matter what. I just had to figure out how I would get there. So I had looked for even more mentorship, even more help. And I was at negative $200 in my bank account. I was at rock bottom. I was homeless. And at this point, I was like, you know what? I have to make something work. So I got into another mentorship program and I had taken out $10,000 on a credit card and went negative $10,000. So I had negative 10.2K in my bank account and I was in debt now and homeless and had no money. It was so bad and I just had to make it work. This probably was the roughest part of my life because I had grown up in Alabama and all my friends, most of them had cut me off. A lot of family had cut me off and I drove across the country. I went from Alabama to San Diego, California to just get in proximity with people who were successful while I learned this high ticket sales stuff. And the information that I got changed my life. It genuinely did because I just had to put my head down, learn the things that I didn't know because I wasn't already making 10K a month. It was a weird feeling though because I was just grinding back against the wall. I was actually working like an in-person sales job. It was still high ticket sales, but it was like in person in an office. I had to wear a suit every day. And so I was working for like 17 hours a day in that office. Went back to sleeping in my car, in my suit a lot of nights. I would sleep in the office as well, on the couch in there. I had a friend that was also letting me sleep on his couch too. He had let me sleep on his couch in his backyard with his German Shepherd that would like terrorize me every night. That was not a fun experience. I remember at one time I had gone up to LA. It was like a 2-hour drive north of San Diego. And I was in Beverly Hills for like a networking event. And at this time, I still really didn't have much to my name. I was still grinding. So what happened was I had parked in like Beverly Hills. It was like West Hollywood area. And I don't know what it is about Beverly Hills, but they give parking tickets to anyone and everyone. The police there are insane. And so I had gotten like 5 parking tickets within the span of like 3 days in Beverly Hills, and I didn't have the money to pay for it, so I just crunkled it up and threw it in the trash. And I didn't pay it, and I also didn't show up to court, and I had warrants out for my arrest because I could not pay my parking tickets. And so I just kept grinding and put my head down. Eventually got those tickets paid off. I eventually started to get my life together and started making that 10K month, that 20K month, 30, 40, 50. And it was just up from there. It was consistent. There's obviously ups and downs, but that's pretty much my story. I remember one night this is a funny story. I was in Arizona for like a networking event because like we travel a little bit to do networking stuff. I was in Scottsdale, and it's funny because people could kind of tell I was homeless while doing sales because they'd see me in person. I just have like a stench to me. Like I would stink. I only had one suit, so I had to wear the same suit. I didn't have a washer and dryer, so I just didn't wash it. It was gross. It was so gross. There was like a mold that had accumulated on the collar and stuff. It was nasty. But I get to the networking event, and then after I try to drive back, and my car's dead. My car battery had died, and my windows were rolled down at the time because it was so hot in Arizona. It was like 110 degrees, and it was like late at night. All my belongings were in my car as well because I was sleeping in there. I was living out of that. So when I was sleeping in my car, I was sleeping on top of all my clothes. And with my car battery dead, the windows rolled down because it's so hot. I had to sleep in the scorching hot car with the windows rolled down. But the worst part about all this is that it started to storm. There was lightning, thunder. It was pouring rain. It like was a flash flood or something. And so I was trying to sleep in my car, 110 degrees, pouring rain, flash flood, dead car battery, windows rolled down, all my clothes getting soaked in my car, and I'm trying to sleep in my wet, soggy clothes in the night. It was not fun. It was so bad. But it's just the things that you have to go through to get to success. People that grow up in a comfortable household, it almost feels like they try to reach for the stars and get to their goal, but then they crash and burn and they just land in the dirt. They land in a worse position than they were in to begin with. And you just have to work your way up. You just have to grind. You have to apply yourself. But you have to also push past the part where most people quit. And man, the reward is so worth it, but you cannot quit. It's just something that you're gonna have to deal with. The difference between successful people and non-successful people is the successful ones were able to push past the hard part where 99% of people quit. So when you get to something hard in life, push past it. It's gonna help you get to the next level. And that's basically my story now. I'm able to travel the world. I just got back from a trip to Dubai. I'm about to book flight tickets to Japan, Canada. It's just my lifestyle now. And all the people that I saw on social media living that crazy lifestyle, it's really real. And it's real for me now. It can be real for you. You just have to actually take action and start. That's all it's about. You just have to start and take it one day at a time. You got to put yourself in a position where you're back against the wall, you're going all in, and you do not give up no matter what. Because the life you're living now and the life that I used to live, it's not worth living. So if you're willing to give that up, you can create a whole new reality for yourself. And that is basically my story.